I am sitting in my penthouse in Seattle right now, watching the rain trace patterns down the floor-to-ceiling windows. My phone just buzzed with a number I have not seen in 3 years. It is my mother. 3 years ago, I packed everything I owned into a rental truck and drove over 2,000 miles from Ohio to Washington State. I did not say goodbye. I did not leave a note. I just wanted to see if anyone would notice. They did not. For 3 entire years, my family had no idea I had moved across the country. But now suddenly my mother is calling. Her voice sounds sweet, almost too sweet. What changed? Why now? Before I tell you why my parents suddenly remembered they have a daughter, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below. And if you have ever felt invisible in your own family, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Trust me, you are going to want to hear how this story ends. Now let me take you back to where it all began. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, in what most people would call a normal middle-class family. My father worked as an accountant for a local firm, putting in long hours during tax season but generally home by dinner most nights. My mother was a registered nurse at the community hospital, working the day shift so she could be home when we got back from school. We lived in a 3-bedroom house with a small backyard and a basketball hoop in the driveway. From the outside, we looked like any other American family. But inside that house, there was an invisible line that divided everything into 2 unequal parts. On one side was my brother Brandon, 2 years older than me. On the other side was me, Patricia, always watching from the shadows. Brandon was everything my parents ever wanted in a child. He stood 6 feet tall by the time he was 15, with broad shoulders and the kind of easy confidence that made everyone gravitate toward him. He was the star of our high school basketball team, the kid whose name got announced over the loudspeakers during pep rallies. When Brandon walked into a room, my parents lit up like someone had flipped a switch inside them. Every conversation at the dinner table circled back to him, his games, his friends, his future. My father would spend hours in the driveway practicing shots with him. My mother kept a scrapbook dedicated entirely to his athletic achievements. And then there was me. I was quiet, bookish, the kind of kid who preferred the library to the basketball court. I excelled in math and science, spent my weekends reading novels and writing in my journal. I was not unpopular at school, but I was not memorable either. I existed somewhere in the middle, neither here nor there. At home, I felt even more invisible. I remember the first time I truly understood my place in our family. I was in 8th grade and I had just won the top mathematics award for my entire grade level. It was a big deal. There was going to be a ceremony at school with certificates and photographs and proud parents in the audience. I told my mom and dad about it weeks in advance. I reminded them the night before. I was so excited I could barely sleep. The morning of the ceremony, I came downstairs in my nicest dress to find my parents heading out the door in their casual clothes. Brandon had a basketball scrimmage that afternoon. Not even an official game, just a practice scrimmage against another school. My mother looked at me with something that might have been guilt, but it passed quickly. She said they would try to make it if Brandon's game ended early. It did not. I stood on that stage alone, accepting my award while looking out at rows of parents, hugging their children, taking photographs, wiping away proud tears. The seat I had saved for my family remained empty. When I got home that evening, my certificate clutched in my hand, my mother barely glanced at it. She asked what the award was for, and before I could finish explaining, my father burst through the door with Brandon, both of them laughing about some play from the scrimmage. Brandon had scored 15 points. That became the topic of dinner conversation. My certificate ended up in a drawer somewhere. I never saw it displayed on the refrigerator or mentioned again. I told myself it was just one time. I told myself things would be different. My 16th birthday was supposed to be special. I had been talking about it for months. My mother promised she would bake a cake and invite a few of my friends over for a small party. Nothing extravagant, just something to mark the occasion. I woke up that morning feeling hopeful. This was my day. By noon, everything had changed. Brandon announced at breakfast that he had been selected for the state basketball team. It was genuinely impressive news, and I was happy for him. I really was. But what happened next broke something inside me. My mother suggested we turn my birthday party into a celebration for Brandon instead. She said we could combine the 2 events, make it a big family celebration. The cake she had planned for me was redesigned on the spot. When it arrived, it said, "Congratulations, Brandon," in large letters across the top. In the corner, almost as an afterthought, someone had squeezed the words "and happy birthday Patricia" in smaller script. That evening, the guests who came were mostly Brandon's friends and teammates. The few friends I had invited felt out of place and left early. Nobody sang happy birthday to me individually. I blew out candles on a cake that was not really mine, surrounded by people who were not really there for me. I smiled through all of it because I did not know what else to do. As the years went on, the pattern only became more established. When it came time for college, I was accepted into a good university with a partial scholarship for my academic achievements. I needed financial help for the remaining tuition and living expenses. When I approached my parents, my father shook his head and said they simply could not afford to help me. The economy was tough, he explained. Money was tight, so I worked. I took 3 part-time jobs throughout college, sometimes pulling double shifts on weekends just to make rent. I ate ramen noodles more often than real meals. I wore the same clothes until they fell apart. I made it work because I had no other choice. What I did not know until I accidentally saw a bank statement my mother left on the kitchen counter during one of my rare visits home was that they had been sending Brandon money every single month. Brandon, who had a full athletic scholarship that covered everything. Brandon, who did not need a single dollar from them. They sent him spending money for entertainment money just because. The same parents who told me they could not afford to help me had been funding my brother's social life the entire time. My college graduation should have been a triumph. I finished with honors, earning my degree in computer science near the top of my class. I sent my parents an invitation 2 months before the ceremony. I called to remind them. I even offered to pay for their hotel room if they wanted to stay overnight. The day of graduation, I kept checking my phone, hoping for a message saying they were on their way. Instead, I received a text from my mother explaining that Brandon was going through a difficult time. His girlfriend had broken up with him and he was really struggling emotionally. They needed to be there for him. She was sure I understood. I walked across that stage alone. I shook hands with the dean and accepted my diploma while families around me cheered and embraced their graduates. A kind stranger offered to take a photo of me in my cap and gown. I still have that picture somewhere. I look happy in it, but if you look closely at my eyes, you can see the truth. After graduation, I moved back to Columbus and started my career as a software developer. I tried to maintain contact with my family, calling home every week, then every other week, then once a month. The conversations were always the same. My mother would answer, ask how I was doing, and then immediately launch into updates about Brandon. Brandon got a new car. Brandon started dating someone new. Brandon received a promotion at work. When I tried to share news about my own life, I could almost hear her attention drifting away. She would make non-committal sounds and then find a reason to end the call. Eventually, I stopped calling, and they never seemed to notice. By the time I was 26, I had built a decent life for myself in Columbus. I had a small apartment, a stable job, and a modest savings account. I had come to accept that my relationship with my family would never be what I wanted it to be. But there was still a small, stubborn part of me that hoped things might change. That hope finally died at my brother's wedding. Brandon was marrying a woman named Heather, and to my surprise, I was asked to be a bridesmaid. Not just a guest, but an actual member of the wedding party. I could not believe it. Maybe this was a turning point, I thought. Maybe my family was finally ready to include me. I threw myself into preparations. I bought a beautiful dress, took time off work, and spent weeks crafting the perfect toast. I wanted my speech to be heartfelt and memorable, something that would show Brandon I loved him despite everything. I practiced it in front of my mirror until I had every word memorized. The wedding day arrived. I woke up early, did my hair and makeup with extra care, and drove to the venue feeling something I had not felt in a long time: hope. When I arrived and checked in with the wedding coordinator, she looked at her clipboard with confusion. My name was not on the bridesmaid list. There must be some mistake, I said. I was told I would be a bridesmaid. The coordinator went to find Heather's mother, who went to find my mother, who finally came to speak with me in a quiet corner of the venue. There had been a change of plans, my mother explained. Heather wanted her sister to be the only bridesmaid on her side, and they did not want the numbers to be uneven. They had meant to tell me but forgot. I could still attend as a guest, of course. They had saved me a seat at a table near the back. I spent that entire wedding sitting among strangers, watching my brother get married from a distance. Nobody introduced me to anyone. When I tried to approach family members I had not seen in years, they looked at me with polite confusion as if trying to place who I was. One of my aunts actually asked if I was a friend of the bride. The toast I had prepared was never given. Instead, I watched as other people spoke about Brandon, praising him, celebrating him, loving him publicly in a way no one had ever done for me. I clapped when everyone else clapped. I smiled when everyone else smiled. And when the reception ended, I slipped out without saying goodbye to anyone. I do not think a single person noticed me leave. That night, I sat alone in my apartment and made a decision. I started searching for jobs in other cities the very next day. Not just nearby cities, but places far away from Ohio, far away from everything I had known. I needed distance. I needed space. I needed to find out if I could exist somewhere without constantly being reminded of my own invisibility. 3 weeks later, I received a job offer from a startup technology company in Seattle, Washington. The position was challenging, the pay was good, and most importantly, it was over 2,000 miles from Columbus. I accepted without hesitation. I did not tell my family I was leaving. Part of me wanted to see if they would notice. Part of me already knew the answer. I packed my belongings into boxes, loaded them into a rental truck, and drove for 3 days straight across the country. I watched Ohio disappear in my rearview mirror and felt something complicated in my chest. Grief, maybe. Or relief. Or both. The first week in Seattle, I checked my phone constantly. No calls from my parents. No texts asking where I was. Nothing. The first month passed. Still nothing. 6 months later, Christmas came and went. I spent it alone in my new apartment, eating Chinese takeout and watching old movies. My mother sent a mass text message with a family photo attached. Everyone was gathered around the Christmas tree back in Ohio. Brandon, Heather, my parents, various aunts and uncles. The caption said, "Merry Christmas from the family." I studied that photo for a long time, looking at all those smiling faces, none of whom seemed to notice anyone was missing. By the time a full year had passed, I had my answer. My family genuinely did not know I had moved across the country. Or if they did know, they did not care enough to mention it. I chose to believe the former because the latter was too painful to accept. Seattle became my salvation in ways I never expected. Those first months were hard. I knew no one in the city, had no friends, no support system, just my small apartment and my new job. But the job turned out to be exactly what I needed. The startup was small but ambitious, working on artificial intelligence applications that felt like the future. My colleagues were brilliant and driven, and for the first time in my professional life, I felt like my contributions actually mattered. My supervisor noticed my work ethic and started assigning me to more important projects. My ideas were listened to in meetings. When I spoke, people actually paid attention. It was such a foreign feeling that I did not know how to process it at first. I kept waiting for someone to overlook me, to dismiss me, to choose someone else. But it never happened. I made my first real friend in Seattle about 3 months after arriving. Her name was Laura, and she worked in the marketing department at our company. We started eating lunch together, then grabbing coffee after work, then spending weekends exploring the city together. Laura was the first person I told about my family. She listened without judgment, held my hand when I cried, and told me I deserved so much better than what I had received. Having someone validate my experience felt like a gift I did not know I needed. By my second year in Seattle, the startup had grown significantly. We caught the attention of major investors and began expanding rapidly. I was promoted to senior developer and given my own team to lead. For the first time in my life, I was being recognized and rewarded for my abilities. The little girl who won a math award to an empty auditorium was finally being seen. Year 3 brought changes I never could have imagined. A major technology corporation approached our startup with an acquisition offer. The negotiations took months, but eventually the deal went through. As one of the earliest employees with equity in the company, I received a payout that changed my financial situation completely. Combined with my salary and careful investments over the years, I found myself with more money than I ever thought possible. I bought a penthouse in downtown Seattle with views of the city and the water. I started building an investment portfolio. I began donating to causes I cared about. And through it all, I kept living quietly, not advertising my success on social media, not reaching out to anyone from my past. During this time, I also met Marcus. He was an architect who designed sustainable buildings, a kind and patient man who listened more than he talked. We met at a community event Laura dragged me to, and something just clicked. Dating him felt easy in a way relationships had never felt before. He knew about my family situation and never pushed me to reconcile with them. He simply accepted me as I was. My new life felt complete. I had friends who cared about me, a partner who saw me a career that fulfilled me, and financial security I had built myself. I had everything I ever wanted. I did not need my family anymore. And then they found out. A former classmate from Ohio stumbled across an article in a Seattle technology publication about our startup's acquisition. The article mentioned me by name, included my photograph, and described my role in the company's success. This classmate, someone I barely remembered, posted it on social media with a congratulatory message. Someone in my extended family saw the post and told my mother. Suddenly, after 3 years of silence, my phone started ringing with calls from Ohio. My mother called, my father called, even Brandon called. I ignored them all. The calls continued for 2 weeks. Voicemails piled up. Text messages arrived with increasing frequency. My mother's messages progressed from casual to concerned to pleading. She missed me. She wanted to reconnect. My father was not feeling well and wanted to see me. They were worried about me, she claimed. After 2 weeks of this, I finally answered. My mother's voice came through the phone, sweet as honey. She said it had been so long since we talked. She said they missed me terribly. She asked why I had not called home in such a long time. The audacity of that question almost made me laugh. I had not called because they never noticed I was gone. I asked her directly, did she know how long I had been living in Seattle? The pause that followed told me everything. She tried to deflect, mumbling something about losing track of time, about being busy with Brandon's troubles. Brandon and Heather had gotten divorced, she explained. It was a difficult time for him. The family needed to support him through it. 3 years, I said. I have lived in Seattle for 3 years. Not once did you call to ask where I was. Not once did you notice I was gone. My mother's tone shifted then. She said what was done, that we should focus on moving forward. She said I had obviously done well for myself, that she was proud of me. And then, almost casually, she mentioned that Brandon was in a tough spot financially after the divorce. Maybe I could help him out. Just a small loan to get him back on his feet. After all, family helps family. Everything became crystal clear in that moment. They did not call because they missed me. They did not call because they realized they had wronged me. They called because they found out I had money and they wanted access to it. 3 years of silence, and the first real conversation was a request for money for Brandon. I took a deep breath. I did not yell. I did not cry. I spoke calmly and clearly. I told my mother that I had spent 26 years trying to be part of our family. I had worked so hard, achieved so much, done everything I could think of to earn their attention and love. It was never enough. I was never enough. And when I finally left, when I moved 2,000 miles away and started a completely new life, nobody even noticed I was gone. That told me everything I needed to know about my place in their lives. I told her I was not angry anymore. Anger requires energy, and I had already wasted too much energy on people who never valued me. I was simply finished. I would not be sending money to Brandon. I would not be coming back to play the role of the invisible daughter who funds her golden brother's lifestyle. I said that if there ever came a day when they wanted a real relationship with me, one built on mutual respect and genuine care rather than what I could provide financially, they could reach out. But I would not be holding my breath waiting for that day to come. I had spent too many years waiting already. Then I hung up. The days following that phone call were some of the hardest I have experienced. I sat in my penthouse and cried, but not for the reasons you might expect. I was not crying because I lost my family. I was crying for the little girl who stood alone on a stage at 13 years old. I was crying for the teenager who shared her 16th birthday with her brother's achievement. I was crying for the young woman who graduated college without a single family member in attendance. I was finally grieving for all the moments I should have been celebrated but was overlooked instead. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in family trauma. She helped me understand that what I experienced had a name. I had grown up as the invisible child, the one whose needs and achievements were consistently deprioritized in favor of a favored sibling. Learning that my experience was recognized and documented, that others had gone through similar things, was strangely comforting. I was not crazy. I was not being dramatic. My pain was real and valid. Laura became my rock during this time. She would show up at my apartment with takeout containers and bad movies, refusing to let me isolate myself. Marcus was patient and understanding, never pushing me to process faster than I was ready to. My colleagues at work, who had become genuine friends over the years, checked in on me regularly. I realized something important during those difficult weeks. I had been so focused on the family I was born into that I almost missed the family I had built. Laura, Marcus, my work friends, the community I had created in Seattle. These were people who actually saw me, who celebrated my successes and supported me through my struggles. They chose to be in my life and I chose them. That choice meant more than an accident of blood. My mother tried calling a few more times over the following month. I did not answer. Eventually the calls stopped. No one else from my family reached out. I was not surprised. I was not even particularly hurt. I had said what I needed to say, and their response confirmed what I had always known. A month later, life has found a new normal. I wake up in my penthouse each morning and look out at the Seattle skyline. I go to work at a job that challenges and fulfills me. I come home to Marcus several nights a week or meet Laura for dinner and conversation. I have started volunteering at a local mentorship program for young women in technology, hoping to give other overlooked girls what I never had. I am 29 years old. I am financially independent. I have a career I built with my own 2 hands. I have people who love me not for what I can give them, but simply for who I am. For the first time in my entire life, I feel genuinely at peace. My phone sits quietly on the counter now. It no longer buzzes with calls from Ohio. The silence used to hurt back when I was still hoping they would notice me. But now the silence just feels like freedom. If there is one thing I want you to take from my story, it is this. You cannot force people to love you. You cannot earn affection through achievements or money or endless patience. Some people will never see your worth no matter how brightly you shine. And that is not a reflection of your value. It is a reflection of their limitations. The best revenge, if you can even call it that, is not proving them wrong. It is building a life so full of genuine love and purpose that their absence no longer leaves a hole. It is waking up one day and realizing that the people who overlooked you did you a favor. They freed you to find the ones who would never make you feel invisible. The people who truly love you will never make you feel like you have to compete for their attention. They will celebrate you, support you, and show up for you without being asked. If you are still waiting for someone to see your worth, maybe it is time to stop waiting. Maybe it is time to see it yourself first. Because once you do, everything else falls into place. So tell me, have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Have you ever had to walk away from people who should have loved you unconditionally? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and your experiences matter. If this story touched you in any way, please hit that like button. It helps more than you know. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already so you never miss another story. And share this video with someone who might need to hear it today. Sometimes knowing we are not alone is the most powerful thing in the world. Thank you so much for watching. I hope your life is filled with people who see you, celebrate you, and choose you every single day. You deserve nothing less.